we spin yarns well. And I'm here as a storyteller to put it into a narrative as to what is happening in the media world. And when you're not in the entertainment business, you have to be entertaining. And this being the land of Hollywood, I thought I'd have to tell you in the form of a film. So I'm going to tell you a Western which I saw when I was young. And the talk is basically a Western, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start with the ugly. What is the ugly? The old media model is dead. Say fini, finito, it is buried 10 feet under. Why is it dead? Newspapers lived off advertisements. Historically, whether it was the 16th century Italian city-state newspaper, which operated out of Firenze or Rome or wherever, that model came down on a mass scale with mass newspapers, each big city, New York Times, whether it was The Guardian in London, whether it was the Times of India in India, lived off a pretty cheap newspaper which gave you a lot of content, but that content was built on the backs of advertisements. That ad section is disaggregated because all over the world you have Google now. Google is going to target your ad far more efficiently and individually than the newspaper will ever do. That is the ugly bit. The old model is dead, and the new models are still evolving. So to use Matthew Arnold's word, a 19th century British poet who captured the Victorian dilemma or the Victorian doubt, he said we are caught between two worlds, one dead and the other powerless to be born. Now I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but I would say that we are still in an inchoate world with the wild west frontier, and no one really knows what will transpire. We know there's something good out there because people will want information, and there is a demand for good information because at the end of the day, information is power. We should know that. So, second, let's hit the second. What is the bad bit? Now, technology, whilst it is worshipped where I happen to be, in Silicon Valley, is always a double-edged sword. With every new technology, you get disruption, and sometimes you get lost, and sometimes valuable things get lost along the way. Now, one of the bad things that has happened with this technological revolution, with this age of 140 characters, is a shortening of attention spans. But that is on the demand side. Let's look at the supply side. What that has done. Supply side. You live in an era wherein there is too much information. There is too much data. There is too much overstimulation. That's problem one. Problem two is that whilst you have this huge span of the internet open and accessible to you, whilst you have Google at your fingertips and you can Google anything you want, yet at the same time, because you don't read that broadsheet, what is happening is you go straight to wherever you find whatever echoes your own thoughts. So you're living in a giant echo chamber. What you are seeing is an exacerbation of something that's always existed, and that word is bias. Now all of us have bias. All of us have our blind sides. It's always been there. But earlier, in an age of the broadsheet, the bias was more local. You were a prisoner of your city newspaper. That was basically your worldview, your window to the world. Now you are the prisoner to whatever website you go to you like and which echoes your cantankerous or not so cantankerous views. So that biases have been exacerbated, and we are living in far more divided times, and the politics of each country shows it. Just look at the politics of this country. How much of dialogue do you have between the two parties? How much of dialogue do you have within the parties? So that is problem two. And problem three is, in an increasingly complex world, in a world where you're seeing Arab uprisings, in a world where you're seeing The fluttering of a butterfly creates cyclones across the world. And I mean it metaphorically, of course. Though literally, what is Greece? It's a butterfly in the world economy. It is littler than a butterfly. And yet, problems and rumblings on the streets of Athens send shivers down the entire world economies. And yet, we live in a world where we do not understand context. Because 140 characters cannot give you context. I've spoken in the leading universities in this country, at Harvard, at MIT, at Yale, at whatever. But the point is not name dropping. The point is, I was shocked and aghast when I asked students at Harvard about the 1917 Balfour Declaration, and this was a government class and international relations majors in there, or whatever, I don't remember exactly, and none of them knew. If you do not know the 1917 Balfour Declaration, you simply have no clue of what is going on in the Middle East. Similarly, I asked a bunch of Stanford students, not too long ago, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, what do you know about 1953 in the context of Iran? Again, a grand total of 0 could answer that question. Iran's in the news. If you want to live in a democratic world wherein you want to hold the powerful to account, you need information. You do not have information, you will be fluttering around in your own little paradise. The powerful will give you bread and circuses. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're happy with that, you will be slaves and not citizens. It is up to the citizenry, it is up to the entrepreneur, it is up to the thinking, questioning citizen of the world to use technology the right way. So now you know the ugly and the bad. Let's talk about the good. And there is some good. Enormous amount of good. Because as I said, technology is always agnostic. It is how you use it. Technology improved in the 20th century as compared to, let's say, the 10th century. And what did we get? Yes, we did get progress. We did get, Mr. Salk coming up with the polio vaccine. But we also got concentration camps and the nuclear bomb. You have new ways of aggregating content and creating content on the web. You have us. Who are we? We are trying to create something new. We are trying to create a global dialogue, which is only possible because we have the internet and Google Docs and Skype. So far, if you wanted to read about global issues, you read The Economist, and Oxford and Cambridge take on the world. Excellent, excellent journal. But at the end of the day, very Oxford. And we thought, hang on a moment, in a globalized world where different people have different blind sides, where all of us are prisoners of our cultural consciousness, where the world is so complex, why not provide context? Why not provide analysis? And why not make sure that it comes from people from around the world? And today we have more than 300 contributors from over 30 countries. And I hope this is the future that we can create